On March 4th, 2025, a navy blue Toyota Camry rolled into my shop with its check engine light glowing like a warning beacon. The owner was a retired schoolteacher, 68 years old, clutching a folded dealership estimate in her hand like it was a death sentence. She had been quoted $1,847 for a catalytic converter, a downstream oxygen sensor, and what the service writer called a full emissions diagnostic recalibration. Her hands were shaking. She told me she had owned that Camry for 19 years and had never seen a bill that big. Today, I am revealing the 7 check engine codes Toyota owners panic over the most and the free reset procedures that erase the vast majority of them in under 15 minutes. I have watched this exact scene play out hundreds of times. A Toyota owner, usually loyal, usually careful, usually meticulous about oil changes, walks into a dealership with a glowing light on the dash and walks out with an estimate that could pay for a vacation. They are told the catalytic converter is failing. They are told the oxygen sensors are dead. They are told the evaporative system needs a new charcoal canister. And in most cases, none of it is true. The light is real, the code is real, but the part is not the problem. That Camry I mentioned, I plugged in my scanner and pulled the code in less than 10 seconds. P0420. Catalyst system efficiency below threshold. The exact code the dealership had used to justify a $1,600 catalytic converter. I did not order a part. I did not pick up a wrench. I disconnected the negative battery terminal, held the brake pedal down for 30 seconds to drain residual voltage, waited 15 minutes, reconnected it, started the engine, and let her drive a specific pattern I will explain in this video. 5 days later, she called me to say the light had not come back. That was 8 months ago. It still has not returned. This is not a magic trick. It is not luck. It is something Toyota engineers built into the system on purpose, and it is something the dealership service department will almost never explain to you because there is no money in a free reset. Modern Toyotas, especially every Camry, Corolla, RAV4, Highlander, Tacoma, and 4Runner built in the last 15 years, run on adaptive learning. The engine control module does not just measure your engine, it studies it. It builds a profile of how your particular Toyota behaves. It learns your fuel quality, your air density, your driving habits, your sensor drift, your altitude, your temperature swings, and it constantly compares those learned values against what it is seeing right now. When the gap between what the system expects and what the system measures gets too wide, it throws a code. Not because something broke, but because something does not match the stored memory anymore. That is the entire secret. The code is not always announcing damage. The code is often announcing confusion. And once you understand the 7 most common confusion codes Toyota throws, you can clear most of them yourself for $0. The first code is the one I just mentioned, P0420. This is the single most common check engine code on the entire planet for Toyotas, with more than 80,000 miles on them. The dealership reads it as a dying catalytic converter. The truth is far more boring. The code is generated when the downstream oxygen sensor sees readings too similar to the upstream sensor over a long monitoring window. That can happen because the catalyst is genuinely failing, but it can also happen because of stored fuel trim adaptations from months of slightly rich running, a weak battery that browned out the ECU, a recent fuel filter change, or even consistent short trips that never let the catalyst fully warm up. The reset is simple. Disconnect the negative battery terminal for at least 15 minutes. Press the brake pedal firmly to drain residual capacitor voltage. Reconnect. Start the engine and let it idle until the cooling fans cycle on at least once. Then drive a complete Toyota drive cycle. That means a cold start, 2 minutes of idle, a steady 55 miles per hour cruise for at least 10 minutes, a controlled deceleration without braking from 55 down to 20, and another 5 minutes of stop and go. That sequence is what Toyota engineers programmed the catalyst monitor to use for self-validation. Most owners never complete it because nobody told them it existed. The second code is P0171, System 2 Lean, Bank 1. Toyota owners see this one constantly, especially on the two AZFE and two GRFE engines. The dealership will quote a mass airflow sensor, an intake manifold gasket, or even injectors. In reality, the most common cause is a stored long-term fuel trim that has drifted above plus 25% because of a weak PCV valve, a slightly dirty MAF sensor, or even just the system overcorrecting after a battery replacement. The reset for this one is a fuel trim reset, performed by the same battery disconnect procedure, but followed by what mechanics call a steady-state relearn. After reconnecting, start the engine and let it idle for 10 full minutes without touching the accelerator. Then drive at a steady 45 miles per hour for 15 minutes with as little throttle variation as possible. This teaches the ECU a fresh baseline. If the underlying cause was a stored adaptation rather than a real leak, the code stays gone. The third code is the one that scares people the most. P0301 through P0304. Cylinder misfire detected. Toyota owners hear misfire and immediately picture a destroyed engine. The dealership response is almost always coils, plugs, and injectors. And yes, sometimes those parts are genuinely worn. But on Toyotas, with the dual VVTi system, a stored misfire code can come from nothing more than a brief misfire during a cold start months ago, captured in the freeze frame, and never properly cleared. The system keeps watching that cylinder more aggressively, lowering its tolerance and flagging the slightest variation. The reset is the same 15-minute battery disconnect, but with one important extra step. After reconnecting, you perform what is called an idle relearn. Turn the key to the on position without starting for 10 seconds. Turn it off. Wait 10 seconds. Turn it on again for 10 seconds. Then start the engine. Let it idle for 15 minutes without any electrical loads, no headlights, no air conditioning, no radio. This forces the misfire monitor to rebuild its tolerance window from scratch. If the misfire was a ghost, it stays gone. If it was real, it comes back within 2 drive cycles, and now you know it was real. The fourth code is P0441 or P0442. Evaporative emission system, small leak. Toyota owners get quoted charcoal canisters, vapor pressure sensors, or full EVAP system replacements. The truth is that 90% of the time, this code is caused by a gas cap that was not tightened to 3 audible clicks, a vapor lock from refueling with the engine running, or condensation in the canister after a humid week. The reset here does not even require disconnecting the battery. Tighten the gas cap to 3 clicks. Drive 3 complete cold start drive cycles. The EVAP monitor on Toyotas runs only under very specific conditions: fuel level between 15 and 85%, ambient temperature above 40 degrees, and a cold start with at least 6 hours of soak time. If you meet those conditions and the cap is properly sealed, the code clears itself. No tools, no parts, no shop visit. The fifth code is P0125. Insufficient coolant temperature for closed-loop fuel control. This one is sneaky. It often appears in winter or in owners who do nothing but short trips. The dealership reads it as a failed thermostat or a dead coolant temperature sensor, and they are sometimes right. But on Toyotas, this code can also come from the ECU never seeing a sustained warm-up cycle. The reset is procedural rather than electrical. You need to allow the engine to reach full operating temperature, meaning the thermostat fully opens and coolant flows through the radiator on 3 consecutive drive cycles. 20 minutes of mixed driving per cycle is enough. If the thermostat is genuinely stuck open, the code returns immediately. If the system was just confused by a winter of short trips, it clears. The 6th code is P0136 or P0156, downstream oxygen sensor circuit malfunction. The dealership response is almost universal. Replace the sensor for around $400 installed. But on Toyotas, this code is frequently triggered by carbon buildup on the sensor tip after long highway runs, not by sensor failure. The fix the dealership will never tell you is the Italian tune-up, combined with a fuel trim reset. After the battery disconnect procedure, take the Toyota on a 30-minute highway drive with intermittent moderate acceleration up to 65 miles per hour. The increased exhaust temperature burns the carbon off the sensor tip, then complete another full drive cycle to allow the oxygen sensor monitor to revalidate. I have personally cleared this code on dozens of Toyotas without replacing a single sensor. The 7th code is the one that fools almost everyone. P0606 or P0607 ECU processor fault. The dealership response is sometimes a full ECU replacement, which on a modern Toyota can run $2,000 or more. But this code, in the vast majority of cases, is not announcing a dead computer. It is announcing a brief voltage interruption, usually from a weak battery, a corroded ground strap, or a momentary brownout during cranking. The reset requires checking battery voltage first. If it is below 12.4 volts at rest, charge or replace the battery before doing anything else. Then perform the battery disconnect procedure and extend the wait time to a full 30 minutes. Clean the negative battery terminal and the engine ground strap where it bolts to the chassis. Reconnect, start, and drive normally for 3 days. If the code does not return, the ECU was never the problem. The voltage was. Now, here is the part the dealership service department will never put in writing. Every single one of these 7 codes can be triggered by stored adaptive data rather than physical failure. Every single one of these resets is documented in the Toyota factory service manual. Every single one of them takes less than 30 minutes, and every single one of them costs $0. The reason you have never heard about them is the same reason I gave at the beginning of this video. A reset does not look impressive on an invoice. A reset does not justify a service writer's commission. A reset does not move parts off the shelf, so it does not get offered. But there is something else I need you to understand, because I will not let you walk away from this video thinking resets are magic. They are not. A reset is a diagnostic step. If a reset clears the code and the code stays gone for 2 weeks of normal driving, the original cause was almost certainly stored data, weak voltage, or a one-time event. If the code returns within a day or two, that is the system telling you something is genuinely wrong, and now you need to investigate the hardware. That information alone is worth hundreds of dollars because it is the difference between authorizing a repair you need and authorizing a repair you do not. The Camry owner I told you about at the start did not need a catalytic converter. The system needed to be allowed to forget a winter of short trips and a weak battery she had replaced 2 months earlier without anyone performing a relearn afterward. The dealership saw a P0420 and reached for the parts catalog. I saw a P0420 and reached for the battery wrench. That is the difference, and now you have it too. One last thing before you go. These reset procedures work on the overwhelming majority of Toyotas built from 2008 to current. Camry, Corolla, RAV4, Highlander, Sienna, Tacoma, Tundra, 4Runner, Avalon, Prius. Hybrids have one extra step involving the auxiliary 12-volt battery rather than the high-voltage pack. And you should never touch the orange high-voltage cables under any circumstances. The 12-volt disconnect is the only one needed for everything in this video. If your Toyota is a 2007 or older, the same principles apply, but the drive cycle timing is slightly different and the OBD monitors are less sophisticated. If this video saved you from a quote you were about to authorize, hit the like button so more Toyota owners see it. Subscribe if you want me to break down the Honda and Subaru equivalents next, because both brands have their own family of confusion codes that get owners quoted thousands of dollars unnecessarily. And drop a comment with the code your dealership tried to charge you for. I read every single one, and I will start a list of the worst quotes I have seen this year. Because the most dangerous thing a check engine light can do is not damage your engine. It is convincing you to pay for a repair you never needed in the first place. And now you have the tools to make sure that never happens again.